Not a late adopter, but you know.
Yeah. Let me put my screens in front of the fact that I'm downloading Falcon and Falcon. All right, we are live now.
Okay, great.
Just FYI. You can talk like a sailor, just know you're taped as one. Okay, so first things first, this is the Battle of Reichenberg. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that exactly right. Reichenberg, I think.
I'm
Um,
convinced. But
yeah, very impressive, right? Um, so this is, I really love what you did here with Envoy. Nick, I don't know if you want to just kind of introduce yourself, just as far as just who you are, your background. I know you've been in a lot of stuff. Like you've dipped your toes in command MO, third party app programming and such. What else? What else have you gotten yourself into? Just for
oh yeah, yeah. Before I was programming professionally, I used to do a lot of mods for various things, and unfortunately, I don't have as much time anymore. But yeah, the one you're referring to, the command modern operations multiplayer mod. I was involved with that. The asynchronous multiplayer mod. I did one for Arma 3 called Guilt and Remembrance, which is
hmm.
has a lot of take up. And yeah, I've done various things for. I have some
Hmm.
Steel Beasts mods and that sort of thing. And this one in particular, Envoy, was something that I did a couple of years ago, and it actually got me a job at WDS and kind of launched my career doing this professionally. But the idea behind this was to sort of add this additional feature, which I felt was missing from these battles, which was just the notion of time and friction, and the sense that information isn't propagated instantaneously between a commander and a subordinate, as it would, be nice to have that God's eye view. But in reality, in battles, a lot of it turns on who knew what and when, and because information isn't perfectly shared, a lot of interesting things start to happen. And I think by finding a way to simulate the exchange of messages, the delay, the disparity in information, you get a sort of a better understanding of why battles unfolded in a certain way. Because it's
Huh?
so easy to play a WDS game, which is great, but you see it from the top down view, and you're like, oh, why didn't they just do that? In the battle. That was dumb. If they had only had my tactical genius,
Right.
this would have been saved. But I think when you start to understand some of the aspects of friction and some of the human elements, and obviously this is just a small fraction of those elements, but once you start to realize that you're dealing with a very large organization of lots of guys with different ideas and different opinions, and they're at some distance from each other, not communicating by radio, you start to understand why seemingly really dumb things happen in battles, or why they unfolded one way and not another. And so,
So
yeah, it was built for that purpose.
so I know you just from having played them indirectly with you. I know you kind of lean towards their Panzer campaign as well as their modern. I'm assuming I actually didn't know that you were this potentially into the Musket and Pike series, right? Necessarily, I just didn't know you played them that much.
Oh, yeah. I go through phases with WDS
Yeah.
games. I think sometimes I go deep on the Musket and Pike, and especially the Napoleonic, and then I'll flip back to the Panzer
Okay.
campaigns. And
Yeah.
yeah, so it
Well,
just
because
depends on
that's
my mood.
and there and well, I guess I'm gonna say that I'm glad you did because probably playing Musket and Pike, I would assume. I mean, this lends itself to that probably just a little bit more. As you said, like in Panzer campaigns, you start having radio communications, right? Things are a little bit better known. But I guess my next question is, are you I don't know what's going on in my background. It's probably my Falcon install. That was weird. Now, if you see Falcon 438 come up, and both Nick and I go, "Wow!" Okay, we might have to stop the video.
You'll just have to bear with us. That's
Yeah.
just it's yeah.
Go
We
get
have
that,
to.
everybody. By the way,
Yeah.
because that looks amazing. By the way, yeah, I know what you're doing tonight, right? So we'll keep this tidy because I want to look at it too. But let me ask you: did you like, as with most utilities, and I'm assuming you had taken a similar route with the command PBEM? Did you try to figure this out? Were you trying to do this on your own before you made the utility for it? Right? You know what I'm saying? Like, were you trying to do this on paper, if you will?
Yes. Yeah, I was, and I think actually a lot of people do this. I realized afterwards,
Okay.
in talking to people, especially the guy who wrote the manual for Envoy, did a
Mm-hmm.
great job, and he does this explicitly for. He does this specifically for the Civil War battles games, and he was with a club, and they would track this with spreadsheets, and they had this very
Oh, okay.
complicated system for exchanging stuff, and I had an ad hoc system that I would use with like a Google sheet,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it proved to be, and I just realized
Cumbersome.
that
A little
it wasn't
cumbersome.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't so complicated. This is exactly
Yeah.
what computers are for, to automate
Yeah, I'm
things like
very much
this.
like that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think we're of the same ilk there.
right.
I always look at programs as utility, really
Hmm.
more so than en entertainment. But of course, I love partaking in the entertainment aspect of it. But
Yes,
I think I would, yeah. Um,
yes.
but let's take a quick look. I know we both have limited time, but maybe we'll get through a couple turns here. Let's take a look at this from a terrain aspect, first of all. How about first from an objective aspect? Let me take the labels off just real quick. So these are the Prussians going against the Austrians. There are 3 objectives. There are definitely visible defensive lines, right? Which kind of make this pretty fun. We don't necessarily know the exact numbers, but we have a pretty good idea that they're roughly equal in size, in number of troops as our own. We don't really have too much intel yet, but that's kind of a part of what we might want to try to do here, is try to get a better idea where their strongest points are, where their weaker points are. Guessing game at this point until you get some intel back. So this is interesting too. They have what do you call these? Can't remember the exact. Yeah, abatis. Abatis? Is it abatis or abatis?
That's a great question.
You
I've never
say
said it out
abatis,
loud.
and I say abatis. I'm sure there's a Mel Brooks song in there somewhere. History of the World Part 3.
Yes.
What exactly is an abatis? It's just sticks, right? Pointy sticks.
Yeah, sharp sticks, sharp
Sharp
pointy
sticks.
sticks.
So I'm assuming
Yeah,
these are
no one likes
actual.
walking through those.
Yeah, right. Um, I'm assuming that these are actual trenches, so that's interesting too. I don't remember WDS using too much of this, do you? I don't think there's a lot of.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if you've read this newish book called Infantry in Battle
Mm.
by Alexander Burns. Have you heard of this one? Or
No.
it's sort of it's a book that is following up on a lot of recent scholarship about the period of 18th century warfare that the
Hmm.
7 Years War covers, and some of the other musket and pike games. And I think what the book is trying to convey is that we have this sense of 18th century warfare as a very uptight affair. Guys are standing up in formations, marching slowly towards each other, firing in turn. And the book was basically pointing out all these examples in the 18th century where that wasn't the case, and infantry was starting to move the way that modern infantry does. That is, using cover, digging trenches, building obstacles, basically fighting and kind of like lying down.
Mm-hmm.
That the sort of thing that we associate with modern combat. A lot of this actually has its origin in the 18th century. So this is just to say that, yeah, you don't see a lot of entrenchment in 18th century WDS games, but I think there are quite a few battles where, yeah, people would be surprised to know that troops were fighting in a much more modern way, and it seems like this might be the case here too.
If I recall correctly, this was actually one of the first entanglements of Prussia and Austria during the conflict. I don't know. I should have researched this better before we did this, but whatever. Everybody can go look it up later. Wiki it. So this is interesting. I'm trying to see what these are depicted as. Interesting that I don't think I've ever seen it do that. As far as that's interesting. I've never seen it specifically state that. That's interesting.
Right. Yeah, I think there have been some new features in the Musket and Pike series to give you a little bit better warning of what you can expect. Because you used to
yeah.
have the old school way of doing this is you go to help and you have the the parameters data open, so you know exactly what happens. But now I think they're very helpfully telling you, okay, if you push a line or cavalry into that hex, you're going to end up with disorder no matter what. So you should just be aware of that, which is great, because I think a lot of times in the older versions things would happen and you would wonder why they did. But this gives you a better sense of what to expect.
All right, so let's we're obviously, let's see, there's another way I tend to do this too. This is kind of like my pre-game game. Let's see, let's take a look at, that's not really, that's kind of, well, I'll give you a wow, that's weird. Let's look at, there's the slopage. I think slopes are fine to keep on. Combat modifiers usually gives you a pretty good idea of what to avoid, just in general. This is almost like the, God, what is the multi-layer, the multicolored layer thingamajiggy on Flashpoint campaigns? You know what I'm saying? You've played that
Yes.
too, right?
Yes, I have. Yes.
So the multi-overlay, this kind of gives you a combined modifiers indication of what's going on here. So again, like, because of these larger buildings, there's a little bit more. I mean, everything's pretty obvious. I don't know what they necessarily do. All disorder. I don't know if it automatically stops the units too. I would think it would. I don't know. We'll find out. We can always save before we try it. Yeah. In others, I don't know if you can just pass through the trenches. I think
I
I would
think
have to.
what that probably means is that you could, if you had the movement points to do so, you could potentially pass through. I don't know what the trenches probably also have a high movement
Right. Cost. Yeah.
cost,
Yeah.
but you definitely couldn't assault past them. Like, so if you once you enter them, I don't think you can. Yeah, you're gonna end up in disorder, so you're not going to be able to melee that turn outside of that hex. But although you might be able to move through it, though, like you say, probably that's unlikely. They probably do. They probably are difficult to move through as well.
So interestingly, we have a river. I would think this is, I don't know. What is that? All right. Is that even?
So you can check by clicking, where it says clear elevation.
Mm-hmm.
You can, if you click your mouse there, it shows you
Crick,
what the hex
crick.
size are.
It's
Yeah.
a creek. All right. Very good. Stream. Hey, I
This
appreciate
is
that.
my
I don't think I ever did that before.
yeah,
Hey, I
it's
already learned something. There you go.
yeah, lesser known
Um,
feature. And yeah, it's one of my pet peeves about the series. Sorry, Rich, but the creek and stream are very hard to know the difference between. But a creek is the larger of the two, and stream is the smaller. Um, but uh, but
well, that's
yeah,
interesting.
maybe to some people that's obvious, but
I think
for me it
it's,
was a little confusing.
for me, well, yeah. I don't know, a crick. Yeah, we used to say crick or
Right. Right. That's the
um,
thing. Depending on where you're from, you might
yeah,
use those
depending where
terms
you were, you had a little
interchangeably.
bit. There's more
Yeah.
of a Yeah, I would have thought a creek would be slightly small. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, a creek was a little bit more stagnant in my book too, right? Which actually might
Hmm.
be what they're depicting here, right? That's a little bit
Hmm.
more stand. It's flowing, but it's not like I always see a stream. All right, whatever. We're digressing. That's fine. We're for some reason they debated what the difference between a crick and a scream. Right, so that's all that. I don't think we necessarily. I mean, it's pretty obvious what not to fire across or what to get yourself into to have cover. Now, riddle me this then: if you're in it, do you get that modifier, or is it firing in and out of that, or is it through it? I can't remember. Do you know what I'm saying? Like if
It's firing into it, I believe. If you're firing out of it,
yeah,
it's
right. But then
yeah,
if you
yeah.
right, so if you were here, it would still be firing. You'd get that modifier firing into that, right? Yeah.
Yes, correct. Correct.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Um, so this really doesn't stop us. I'm assuming the crick won't stop us too much. It's kind of it kind of makes you visually stick there, but I think we have some maneuvering. I would think we have some maneuvering capability. Maybe it'll take a little bit extra movement to get across the creek, but I'm assuming we can get across there if we had to.
Yeah, we can
Um,
check. You can check that by going to help, um, go
yeah.
to parameter data, and then it will. This is if you really want to go deep. Gives you all of the. If you scroll down, it shows you all of the costs for various.
I think also this is definitely a way to do it, but I think one other
Yeah.
way
Oh, yes.
is
This is
this
probably
one. I think
yes.
it's this one. Yes, the summary information, which is if you've
Hmm.
never used this before,
Hmm.
this is the quick way to do
Yeah.
what Nick was saying.
You should do
Um,
this, not what I said. That's for sure.
but let's take a look. Okay, so there's no combat modifier. Um, does not block lines. Well, that makes sense, of course. But note 3 and 6. Creeks
Uh-huh. So
being.
they can only be crossed in two situations. That's right. That's the distinction between a creek and a stream.
Mhm.
So only if they're frozen or
Hmm.
yeah, if there's a bridge.
They haven't seen too many creeks, have they? I'm sorry. This is the old. There was a. Okay. This reminds me. Are you a member of the IKS, the Kriegspiel Society?
I am not. I lurk in their Discord, but I am not a member.
Yeah, okay. Well, there was a Gettysburg match, right? It was huge. It was called Grand Gettysburg, and there was one creek there. Can't remember the damn name of it. Stone Creek, or I don't know what it was, but it was like it literally stopped everybody, right? Like
Hmm.
everybody was, and then there was a huge argument after about whether or not this crick, right? This creek would have stopped somebody from just marching across it and getting a little muddy, you know, at best or at worst. But yeah, I don't know. I think there might be a because I was from the north and in New York, and like in New York a crick was not was it was substantial enough that a child could not jump across it. I think that was our measure of a creek, right? You couldn't jump across it, but you could definitely get across, right?
I'm from the same area, and I agree.
Right?
That's
Like
how I would define it. That's how I
cricks
would
have
define it.
walls. It was definitely like a trench. It was almost like a trench,
Right.
right?
Right.
But you could eat you in it always had fordable places in multiple, like within a half click, you had probably at least 3 or 4 places, but whatever. I don't want to get too into it, but um so it's interesting. A string, yeah, I think it's just I don't know, maybe where they come from, it's just reversed. I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen too many streams. I think maybe that's why I don't have the. I think
It,
their idea of a stream is you can jump across it literally.
right. Yeah. I think you get your ankles wet going
Right.
through. I think
Right.
that's the
Right.
idea of a stream. I see the problem because I think river, when they talk about a river in
That's
this scale,
substantial.
they mean a full hex of water. So
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
there's this sort of tricky distinction wwhere you're talking about something that is, under 50
Fordable.
meters
Yeah.
wide.
Fordable or not.
Yeah.
Fordable or
Yeah.
not. Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
we won't get too stuck on that. All
Right.
right.
Good idea.
Although we already did.
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing I
That's
should
it.
suggest, if I don't interrupt the flow too much, is to turn on division colors as well. That I find very helpful when using Envoy. I think it's under View, actually, if I can remember correctly. Yeah, division colors, Z.
There we go.
Yeah, and that just helps you because you're sending messages in Envoy, within the hierarchy of the order of battle. It's useful to have that kind of color coding to let you know who's controlling whom.
Very good. I think one other thing we need to take into account here is that these guys back here are fixed in nature. Oops.
Hmm.
At least that's at the start. And I can't remember. I think we got to look at the info schedule. Yeah, where is that? Here we go. Units scheduled. No, I thought you could see that schedule.
Oh,
Oh, this
that's
releases.
releases. Yeah. Huh. Well, maybe
So is
they
that
may not be
maybe
released. Yeah,
maybe
they
they
may
don't
not be
get
released.
released.
Yeah, they
Or
may just be there for historical.
like a garrison.
Yeah,
That's a lot of
exactly.
guys. Um, hmm, okay, that's the first time I've seen that. All right. Well, we'll check it out. We'll
Yeah.
recheck it every turn. As a matter of
Yeah.
fact, yeah, if you want to see fixed units, I think there's a way to see that. Yeah, right there. Yeah, we'll kind of remember to hit that button just to see that they're still fixed. Just all right, cool. What would you like to command? We can. Let me see. They have some weird brigades here. Like this brigade is a brigade unto itself here. See that? This makes sense. This makes sense, but this one is a little weird. It's
Oh,
like a
interesting.
small brigade
It's
style.
it's just 700 guys.
Yeah.
They're just kind of
Yeah, it must be a detachment. It's a restricted line. Just don't know if there were any other clues. We'll have to I'll have to read up on that, see what that represents, right? That's a little
yeah.
weird. They were probably there. They could have been convalescing there or something. And they decided to just throw them on there or something. It's weird. All right. So we won't. I don't think we'll make you do that one. You want to do the here. We could even do it by. You can start by doing the infantry. Might be just the easiest way to do this. Let's take a look at the organization this way. This is a weird vanguard too. I'm assuming, of course, as you come onto a battlefield, the right side, right? This is actually, if I'm not mistaken, it's actually considered the place of honor, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
at
Mm-hmm.
least
That
up
sounds
to this,
right.
point,
Yeah.
because that's usually they get the rightmost frontmost
Yeah, and
spot.
they have the best hats too, as you can see.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
All right. So there's that. There's Vanguard. There's the infantry. Yeah, why don't you take the Vanguard and the infantry for now? We'll split it up a little bit more later, as needed later or something, or we can swap or something weird. But then there's cavalry and artillery. Unless you prefer cavalry, do you prefer cavalry just because there's a little bit more mobility, or what do you prefer?
Well, um, I'm also happy to. Well, so we're gonna. How do you want to do this? Because normally the way that the Envoy play structure works, and you tell me how you want to do it, because it's all this is totally optional, is that you start with the standing orders, which are
Right,
orders that you would imagine were issued late last night, you
right.
know, you looked at the map, but you don't know where the enemy are,
Right.
and those are the orders that are
Well,
issued
let's
by the
well
top of the
let's
army.
just both talk it through for now for
Yeah,
standing orders. All
yeah,
right. So
sounds
we're
good.
looking at the
Sounds good.
so let's take a look. The Vanguard. Just in general, what are your thoughts about? Well, let's talk a little bit more higher level. Like, where do you think we need to get the artillery? Where do you think we need to probe with the cavalry? This is pretty much an. Let's go see how this is broken up. It's one brigade. There's not a lot of troops at this battle. I think it's about 15K troops overall.
Mm.
This is an interesting
I
battle.
mean, it is. Yeah, I mean, this to my initial perspective, this looks like a really tough
Oh, for
assault.
the Prussians? Oh yeah, absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Going
Um,
up, it looks like they're well, they're
it's
kind of.
going down, yeah, but
You're
it's
right. It's going down. It's going down.
um, but that's not saying much. it it's not saying much if the objectives were here and these
Yeah.
guys had to come here, right? But literally, you get a little bit of a running start, I guess. But then you get the stream here, which probably shouldn't be too. Yeah, that shouldn't stop it too much. But then you got a lot. I don't know. I'm actually a little surprised that the objective is not back here, but
Hmm.
so that's interesting.
Well,
Um,
here's what I'm seeing here, and you tell me if you agree. So there's like a little the pieces of ground that are interesting are there's kind of a rise in front of our troops. There's like a little hill
right
up
about
there. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
right here.
So one thing I'd be curious to do is see if that's clear because it would be nice to get the artillery on top of that.
As a matter of fact, yeah, let's
Um,
go double check that. And you're right. You are correct. There is, yeah, you're right. This would be probably good for the artillery. So
yeah,
so let's just
we have a
make a
lot of
quick.
choices there.
So you see all my screen, right? I
Yes, I
shared
can.
everything, right? All
Yeah,
right. So let's do. Okay. So just to kind of show, we'll give a little envoy trip here a little bit too.
yeah.
So one of the first things we're going to do is these standing orders, like Nick was just talking about. Usually, you're going to give that from the army level, right? In this case, it's Herzog von Bevern.
Hmm.
Bevern? Bevim?
Hmm.
Bevim. Okay. Can't read it. Sorry. Old man eyes. So let's give a order from him to the from him to the artillery, as you can see. So set standing order. So the standing order will be to maneuver
Well,
to.
yeah.
Go ahead.
There's one. So one, the very cautious version is get the detach a cavalry squadron to scout that hill and see if there's anybody up there.
Okay, so that's
But you might want to start the artillery kind of rattling along there because they're going to take a while, and the cavalry can always tell them, "Hey, no, it's dangerous. Stay away." So you probably want to try to coordinate between the cavalry and the artillery. There is what I would do.
let's just say very fundamentally that they're
Hmm.
going to see cavalry. They're going to see cavalry.
Hmm.
Something simple like that. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
We know our intentions.
Right. And do
That's
we?
the other thing. Like if we
Yeah.
were, this actually works well for probably even a play by post, right? Um,
Yeah.
it's kind of neat.
Yes.
You know what? I was just thinking about that. I wonder if you could even. I'm gonna give you homework, right? Um,
Please.
it'd be kind of neat to be able to email that, like literally set the emails of the people involved, and then
Yeah, it is that is a really good idea. That is a good idea. If I were to push this
ooh,
program further, yes, it would be
yeah,
cool to send those out to.
ooh, I got a better idea. Well, no, I got an improvement on that idea. Also send the save file, like so. In other words, just I kind you already have like a hook for the save,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
I'm wondering if you can also send the save file at the same time, like attach the save file.
Well, yeah, you can send the. It's tricky. It might get a little because you'll be able, it won't control the information the way you'd want it to right now.
Right.
I would have to rewrite the program.
Yeah,
But
yeah, it's fine. The other alternative is you just send the damn files like everybody else does for PBM, right? Yeah, right.
well, I
You know,
think here's the way I intended it to be used, and you're right that it would be better to automate it even further. But what I was thinking is that this would be like you would use the WDS game as kind of like a Kriegspiel. So you'd
mhm,
have a game master who would be managing the envoy, and then you would have a bunch of human players, and using Discord or wherever, and you would either send them a screenshot or tell them, hey, you're the cavalry commander, here's what you see. You get a mess, and if a player sends a message, you're just using envoy to basically make your life a lot easier. And basically you're doing all of the
mhm,
Kriegspiel adjudication using the
right,
WDS game and envoy,
right,
and
right.
the players would be removed from it to some degree. That was kind of what I was hoping it would work. But what you're saying would also be great if you could just connect it to a bunch of players automatically.
Right, and you
Yeah.
could like, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, and you could like literally like right click on one of these and set
Mm-hmm.
up who that is,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
then and you could
Mm-hmm.
still, it would still be only. I'm just wondering. Yeah, you don't want to get overly complex unless you really need to, right? I mean, ultimately, really, God, I'm trying to think. Let me think on that a little bit more because
Sure.
I think okay, so first and foremost, a way to literally just right click and assign a human being to that
Mm-hmm.
visually is probably
Mm.
a reasonable
That's a
ask,
good point.
right?
That's a very good
Just so
point.
you keep a record of that, because like you come back, let's just say it's a week later, you're
Yeah.
all busy, you have absolutely no idea who took what. In a small battle like this, it's probably not that big a deal, but who knows? If you're trying to
Mm-hmm.
manage
Mm-hmm.
like 10 people doing this, which in many
Mm-hmm.
cases you probably would have potentially a human per brigade. That's usually what we did in the IKS.
Hmm.
Yeah, you usually were the smallest level, or the smallest highest level depicted. Depending on how large a match it was,
Right.
usually somebody was controlling a regiment or a brigade.
Mm-hmm.
Just little things. All
No, it's a
right,
good idea.
so let's go from. So we already did this and we already did that. Oh, we never said it. Did I just cause a bug? Not a bug, but did it just erase it?
Oh yeah, I think when you click off of it, it does not preserve the
Okay,
message.
that's fine. All right, so just say move tail. Something like that. So set standing order. So you always got to remember. So that's one thing that at least take from this is always set it before you move to any other combination. So it's pretty straightforward. And then you click on it here. I really like how you did this. All right, and then so we got them going, but we need to kind of tell the cavalry what we were in kind.
Hmm.
Um, so Russian army to the cavalry. I think we can just go ahead and give it at this level because there's really only one brigade. Move to. You think move a squadron?
Or just say scout the hill. Like if you think about how he would give that command, he'd say scout the hill. Tell the artillery if it's not clear otherwise. You know, yeah. However, he would give that at a high level, because then once it reaches the von Württemberg, he'll then decide what to do at that point. Um, but yeah, exactly.
So something to that effect, and
Yeah,
and and
exactly.
and they're gonna be quicker no matter what. So that would
Hmm.
work out. Infantry, though, in general. Let's see. Let's look at it here. It's a heck of a lot of infantry. Let's see how it's depicted here. There's Armstel, von Schonig, and Kleist. Okay, it's these two are the front, are line one basically.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
majority of line one. There's one
Hmm.
little holdout right there. That guy's holdout. That's a weird brigade. Why is that set up that way? That's weird. I wonder if there's a historical reason for this
I'm
being.
sure there is. Yeah, I'm sure there is.
Wonder if this leader didn't like this leader. You know what? Let me take a shot. Let me take a shot of that real quick. Yeah, I'm wondering why. Maybe that leader didn't like that leader. There's always a reason, right? There's some, anytime you notice something, there's probably a historical reason. It doesn't make sense otherwise. All right. So generally speaking, though, what do we? Is the line gonna hold, or is it gonna line to the? Do we plan on maybe lining to the left of this, or splitting it, keeping some on there?
It's tricky. How many turns are there in this battle?
20. There's
There
not
are 20.
many.
Okay, so yeah, it's not a lot. It's not like
Not.
a huge number, but it's like we have a day, and so I would say I guess we have to kind of scout a little bit first. We should maybe use our cavalry to figure out
How
what's
about
going on here.
yeah, before we get caught in the open, I guess.
Yeah, because it
But
seems to
are
me
we?
that the enemy left is probably the most promising avenue, because on the right, you've got those trenches, you've got a bridge, you've got the creek. On the enemy left, you've got, okay, we've got to go up a hill, but
It's a pretty well. I'm glad you mentioned that, because yeah, maybe we should take a look at that. This is a pretty strong hill here. This is even higher than that. Yeah, there's a hill all the way through.
well, and given the abatis or
yeah,
however you say it, I bet they have some artillery up there or somebody set up there to shoot down on us. So
right. And right now, that's another thing to look at, is how far do we actually see. So you should always
not
do
very.
this.
Yeah.
Right, but then is there anything? Yeah, what about these guys? Probably much less. Just kind of, I've always wondered why they don't. I mean, can't your wagons see? I guess the whole point is WDS feels like the supply trucks aren't going to be capable of getting
Yeah, they've
courier.
got they've got a lot of
They
things.
got other things to do.
Yeah.
So this is kind of interesting. I've always found their sighting to be kind of interesting, right? There's always like
It's
that blurb of visibility. You're like, really?
mhm, mhm,
Like this?
mhm.
Like how can this see that?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's yeah, the line of sight stuff is I know anyway,
Or
it's a
not that,
complicated subject.
like from that to that,
Yeah.
like I think it's more of a, if you can see, I think that's what, maybe there's an algorithm, maybe Rich will watch this at some point and give us a gram about it. But I don't know what the algorithm is for it to not see those right there. You know what I mean?
Mhm, mhm.
You know what I mean?
I think what it is it's catching the top of the basically, if you have a bit of a plateau there where you have 11 and 11,
Right here,
you're going to be able to see kind of the top there, like somebody perched at the top of the
but
hill.
not
But if
beyond
you're
it.
one hex behind that,
Oh,
you
you're
wouldn't,
right. You're right.
because
You're right.
the edge of the hill is blocking.
I think you're right. I think you're right. There's an algorithm. There's an algorithm involved. I'll just suffice it to say, just click on it and just deal with it. Um, this one is interesting too. I can understand this because this all blocks that.
Mhm.
But long story short, the furthest visibility, more than likely from here. So we don't have to. Now there might be troops in here that we're not seeing potentially. And we'll find out. So I think we're generally, are these both cavalry? Yes, they are. We could even probe this with the Vanguard, but these guys are pretty. What's their quality? B. We got quality B chief. Something to also keep in mind is just
Mhm.
is the quality. Wow, these guys are A. Well, they think highly of the Prussians. I'm just kidding. These are cavalry. Yeah, you just don't. I'm interesting. They don't have cute pointy hats like you were saying before, right? I don't remember Prussian cavalry having tricorn, right? Or
Yeah.
interesting. Okay.
Well, it's interesting. Maybe we should scout. Maybe the initial scouting of the hill and other places should be with the Vanguard, because they're lower. They're not dragoons. Well, I guess the dragoons. What defines a dragoon? They shouldn't. They can. They're not meant to mix it up with
They're
other cavalry.
able,
They dismount and
yeah,
shoot.
right. But in this case, they're These are shock swordsmen, really, right?
Right. So
These
we do want to.
guys
So we
have
do want to use the
carbines.
dragoons, yeah, with carbines to scout. I would say.
Probably just because they have a range of 2, frontage of 20. Yeah, I really feel like these guys are more for a punch after you've hit.
Absolutely.
These guys are a little bit more flexible. And interestingly, they can see up there. That's kind of weird. Okay, whatever. Again, don't question it. I don't understand why that guy can see more than that guy.
I think the idea again being that if you have some guys standing up there, you'd see their, tricorn hats if they're on that hill. But you know,
Yeah, there's an
uh,
algorithm. Whatever.
yeah,
It's
there's an
fine.
algorithm. There's an algorithm.
That's our meme.
Yeah.
There's an algorithm for that. All right, so let's just kind of get an idea what these guys are kind of where they are generally clear to. What do
Mhm.
they know? So another thing to kind of keep in mind is really we should be looking at this from the leaders' perspectives, right? I think that's one thing about Envoy really is ultimately when you're giving a command from this individual to this brigade, you would be comparing what this general can see or
Yes.
grand marshal
Yes.
to this marshal,
Absolutely.
their general marshal as well. Yeah. Um, so that's interesting because really this person's so until something that is something to keep in mind if you wanted to be a strict envoyist, as we'll call you. Um,
The
right. He
the
shouldn't be able to give commands for anything he's not aware of yet.
yes, yes, all the yes. The idea I think is the standing orders are things that take place on turn zero, and they're as if they were given without any information aside from just looking at the map. And then, yeah, the really strict way to play, as you're saying, is no one should give an order at that point. That is afterwards that is not based on
So I
anything
think
that they can see or know that they actually know,
so. This
aside from standing orders or other messages they've received up until that point.
Yeah, the CNC doesn't see much up here. So one of the immediate reactions would be to send a certain amount of this. So how much do you think just even one of these stacks probably would be significant enough?
You could,
Um,
or you can break those stacks up into smaller stacks. With if you highlight one of those guys, you can break them up into squadrons,
yeah,
um,
like even
and
here.
that's often good for scouting. Is that you just dispatch a bunch of little squadrons out, and they
Yeah,
can
and
kind of.
I can't even remember where that here. We'll find
That's
it.
under command and change skirmish / squadron, and it's the same key to deploy skirmishers if they're capable of it.
What happened there? Unit strength is too low to deploy squadrons. So
Oh,
that's
interesting. Okay.
interesting. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm wrong about that. So
Well, I
120
think
is the
it's because
lowest.
of it's really the scale, right? More than
Yeah.
anything.
Hmm.
If this was a higher scale, then you probably could
Yeah.
do it. So let's just take one of these
Yeah. Why
and
not?
move him, move him right about here. Let's do it one at a time. Oh wow, what did I do?
Well, they have a risk of being disordered when they cross the stream. Yeah.
Well, great, lovely, and then I'm out of movement. Um,
It's the 18th century. Things happen slowly, you know?
yeah, I might. You think I should extend this line no matter what?
Well, I think if we zoom out a little bit, the question is
Let me get some of this.
what we probably want to probe. We want to know what's going on over there, like yeah, around there, and then we want to know what's probably going on our left side as well. Enemy right. Um,
This is probably worth
those are the
even kind of pushing a couple through here.
yeah, exactly,
Here, let's just take.
and
I always
technically in
feel
Envoy, you'd want to give standing orders to be like do this, so that it. But again, we're just messing around. So
right, but
um,
let's go look at what we already did. So we scout the hill, but we would also. So that's the other thing. These are standing orders, so I should be able to give as many as I care to, right? That's the way you designed it, right?
Yeah, it's turn 0. So if you wanted to, so you can still, because it's the first turn, you can still change your standing order. So you could actually clear the existing one if you click clear.
Yeah, I'm
It
okay.
won't let you send another one.
Oh, you
But it
want? Mm,
but what you could do is you could hit clear, because and just rephrase it, because this is, again, this happened the night before.
right here. Let me
Um,
just here. I'll take what I got first.
I wonder if I
Yeah, it did it.
yeah, yeah, it just didn't.
I don't know what the name of this town is. So it's to town to southwest. And it's something like that, right?
Yeah,
Something like that. And
yeah, I think that's
set it, and then if I go back, it should have that corrected thing. All right.
yeah,
Again, you
yeah,
probably don't want to get too much any more verbose than that.
yeah.
Honestly, it's this. This is it's actually not a lot of cavalry, really, when you come down to it. Right? This is kind of almost this is a lower scale, right?
Yeah, I wonder if these are 100-meter, 40-meter hexes. I'm not sure.
We should see that here. I just no.
They probably are still 100-meter hexes, because normally the 40-meter ones are considered company level scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if these are,
No, they're
this is a
not.
company level
Yeah, these
scenario.
are all brigades.
Yeah,
Or these are all
yeah, exactly.
okay. All right. So we wanted to move at least one or both. The hell, you want to send both?
Uh,
I feel like they might need a little more protection there just in case.
yeah, up to you.
All right, so let's do that. And then let's go. Let's not cross any. Let's not cross the
Yeah.
Danube of streams. Um,
Now,
well, that's
if
as
you
far as I'm
try to
getting.
move through them, you will probably end up with disorder. Yeah, and if you cross the
Well,
creek,
it's doing its job by showing you well, not really. They somehow this unit sees better than that cavalry unit, probably because of that.
mhm.
All right, whatever. We'll get there eventually. All right, so here we're trying to get them eventually here, right? Okay, we've already moved everything here. Move it. No, we didn't. I thought we moved these guys. Oh, we moved these guys.
Those guys. Yeah.
We also need to be careful because these guys are moving away from their brigade commander, right? Like so, like here's that, and then here's his command structure, right? So if this guy gets into trouble, he's gonna have a hard time. If he gets disordered or even routed, he's gonna have a hard time. It's
Yes,
just something to think about. Just something to think about.
it's true. It's true. So the other thing to keep in mind is, for cavalry at least, what what to send information back to the commander, what you can do in Envoy, is you can send a message from units that don't have leaders on the command structure. There's a custom sender feature, so that you
Oh,
can
I didn't
send a
know that.
message from any hex, and it's made for scouting, basically. So if you go to from, and then you go to custom sender, like, so let's say they see some
You just
enemy
go
and they're
by
like,
location.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and then what you can do is, if they see some enemy, they can send it, like, one of their guys back to ride as hard as he can and say, oh, we
Mm-hmm.
see this, this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
And even though you don't have a leader on the map, you can just pick the hex that message comes from, and Envoy will track it properly
right.
deliver it when it arrives.
So here's the thing. We're at time, I think, unfortunately.
Oh yeah,
Um,
unfortunately, yeah, getting
I
close.
just want to make sure you do. Now, let me save these files. Let me get them in front of you. We'll send some notes to each other to speed this up for next time.
Cool.
Maybe we'll split up the commands a little bit. Maybe get those things together. Maybe even write them out in a sheet or whatever, or a doc, and then we'll meet up some other time and continue. Okay.
Sounds good.
All
Yeah, it'd
right.
be fun.
All right. I've
Cool.
already learned several things. I hadn't really used the custom. I'm trying to think. Oh yeah. I guess another thing would be, okay, probably something I would want is maybe to be able to right click on that and edit,
Mm,
like
At least
how
on the
we,
first turn. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Maybe at least just the standing
hmm
orders.
hmm
No big
For
deal.
sure.
If you have to just do what I did, you copy it and then you know, do what you gotta do. All right.
No, it's
I'll get,
awkward. I hear what you're saying. For
no.
sure.
I'm just trying to think of things that are absolutely necessary, not that you can get around that by just copying, clear it, and paste it and edit. I'm just
Oh
trying to
yeah,
think. Yeah,
sorry.
the other
One
thing,
thing I should. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. You had
the
another
other thing
thought.
we mentioned was potentially just by like maybe a whatever purple or just some sort of color here of saying right
Yeah.
click and assigned to maybe yeah I don't know I think you'd probably want to use like a separate color, purple or whatever, but sometimes you're gonna have problems with real estate potentially. You might Yeah, you know how to deal with that. You
No, I see what you're saying. We already do use color a little bit to indicate when
or
brigades
I'm
are.
just
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I'm just
But
wondering maybe it's easier like you right click it, you set it, but then it becomes visible somewhere else. Like
mm,
maybe there's a little you got a
hmm
pretty good amount of real estate here.
hmm
Maybe here just play maybe like player, like after you set it, maybe it becomes visible here.
hmm
Player blank, you know what I'm saying? Like
mm.
right here.
Yeah, that's a good
Um,
idea. That's a very good idea.
I mean, a different color that just says player.
hmm
Um, just like you have your from and to, you could even just do it like up here, player
Yeah,
blank, right? Um, yeah, but whatever. Yeah, I think this from a UI perspective, you don't want to mess with this tree too much more. I don't think. Maybe just somewhere here, a different color says player colon blank.
yeah. I would love to get rid of the to from. I think it's a little awkward. Maybe like with if you right clicked or left clicked, but I
Oh, you
settled on
mean
it just because
no? I like it. Maybe the from
yeah.
should be on the left.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Uh-huh.
that's I don't
Yeah,
know.
maybe you're right.
I think yeah, that's probably about it.
Yeah.
So if you can just do that, and that'd be great. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. No problem. No
Hey,
problem.
I'm using it, right? You want users, right?
I no, this I always love the feedback. No, I should mention one other thing while it's here.
Did want to
Yeah,
say
there is an
there's
envoy
a whole
written
manual.
by this Wallace Welder did a great job. He put a lot of time into it.
Oh, I
Uh,
did want to kind of maybe just quickly we'll show that too. That's interesting.
oh yeah, the settings. There are some presets for the 18th century, and yeah, it explains how it manages the dispatches and
Ooh, I like your.
this.
I didn't even realize you had like a dialogue looking. I like that a lot.
I forgot
What
I
is
did
this
that.
written? The other question I had, what is this written in? Is this
C
Java?
sharp.
C sharp. Okay.
It's close. It's better. It's slightly better than Java, but yeah.
That's
No,
Microsoft's meme. That's their sales pitch now. It's slightly
yeah.
better than Java.
Pretty much. Yeah. No, I'm angering all sorts of C sharp enthusiasts. No,
Whatever.
it is. It's
I was a .NET guy.
yeah.
Um, that's cool though. But what I wanted to say is we were talking about scale before, right? So
hmm
yeah, you would want to mess with this if this was a significant different, like if this was maybe, I think they are working on American Revolutionary War, right? They're working on a replacement for the original,
Yes.
with the Musket and Pike series. So I think a lot of those might be that squadron level. I would have to imagine some of those, pretty good amount of them maybe would be that lesser scale. In which case you probably would need to change the dispatch speed, right?
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
really, there should be a preset 40 meter, 100 meter. Yeah, I just the you can create your own too, and I was kind of hoping that people would make some that were a little bit better than the kind of default ones that I threw
Mm.
together, and would share them for specific battles, because I think also it might depend on the battle. You might have a higher chance of interdiction, or chances that messages got lost depending on what something that was going on, that it's kind of hard to catch with just a general percentage point. So
Yeah, I like how you did this crescendo, but not unruly, not horrible. It can go really bad. Yes, there are chances it
mhm,
could go really bad, but it protects itself from getting too squirrely. So
mhm.
cool. Yeah, it's a great system. All right, we'll meet again at some point and go through the whole
What
thing.
one thing I should mention just before I run, is if you click on another guy, and I'm sorry I didn't mention this earlier,
Like
just if you
here.
click on yeah, or send it to click on the two field so we get the message up,
Okay. To
like
whom?
to say
Like to.
Von Kleist or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
right click in the message field.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah. I
there's
totally forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so right, when you were trying to remember the name of the village and that sort of thing, all of the villages and like very short, like shortcut commands
It
are
would
in
help
there.
if I put the. Yeah. It's that hint. Put the labels back on as well. Which is this road sign looking thing, by the way. Which is great because it forces you to learn those too. Right? Because that's really all they had to go by, right? They probably had a map
Mhm.
and with
Mhm.
maybe some rough names at
Yeah,
most, probably this detail level.
yeah, or a local guide or something.
Yeah,
Anyway, yeah.
exactly. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, sorry.
All right.
That's all I got to say. But yeah, this was fun, Peter. Let's yeah,
Yeah,
we'll follow up.
yeah, it's almost like we have to. It's almost like we should send the files to each other, pre-plan a little bit, because otherwise we'll sit here and talk forever, which is good. Which is good. Whatever. It's just squirrel, right? Squirrel. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
See ya.
that's how it goes.
Have a good
Okay,
one.
see you soon. You too.